Hello everyone, this is Eden, a tutor from Alpha 1 Coaching College. Today we're going to go through the Alpha 1 OC Trial Test 1 review. If you haven't already done this test, please go to the website that is on the screen right now, alpha1.1/free1, so that you can have a go of this test before you see all of the answers. As you know, in this test, there's going to be a range of comprehension, maths, and thinking skills questions. So today we're going to go through the techniques to tackle the questions that were in this paper, as well as some general tips and tricks which might help you along the way. So let's get started now. Okay, so the first group of questions that we have are based off this poem called Neglect by R.T. Smith. So first, I'm going to read through this poem with you, and then we'll go through some vocab and discuss what the poet is trying to say in this poem. Okay, so neglect is the scent of apple bough smoking in the wood stove. What I will remember of the red delicious I brought down, ashamed, that I could not convince its limbs to render fruit. Too much neglect will do that, skew the sap's passage, blacken leaves, dry the bark and heart. I should have lopped the dead limbs early and watched each branch with a goshawk's eye, patching with medicinal pitch, offering water, compost and mulch, but I was too enchanted by pear saplings, flowers and the pasture, too callow to believe that death's inevitable, for any living thing being unloved, untended. What remains is this armload of applewood now feeding the stove's smolder, splendor, ripens a final time in the firebox, a scarlet harvest headed by dawn to embers. 2 decades of shade and blossoms, tarts and cider. Bees dazzled by the pollen, spare elegance in ice. But what goes is gone. Smoke is all through this lesson in winter. Regret, I've been given to remember. Smoke, and red delicious apples rather than a passing cardinal's crest or cinders. So in this poem, initially it might be a little bit difficult to understand what's actually going on, because the poet uses a lot of imagery and metaphors and quite tricky words to explain what they're feeling. So what I'm going to let you know is that this poem is actually telling the story of the poet's red delicious apple tree. So red delicious is the name of the apple tree, and here they refer to it as just red delicious as a representation of the apple tree. Okay, so this apple tree actually died over the winter because the poet was not able to look after it properly. It's actually the title of the poem here. The poet neglected this apple tree and caused it to die. So firstly, let's go through some vocab words from this poem. The first word, of course, that I want to go through is this word neglect. So what does neglect mean? Neglect means that you pay no or too little attention to something. Okay, so let's say you have a pet. If you neglected your pet, you would leave it at home all day or forget to give it food. That's called neglect, when you're not giving enough attention to something. So what's happening is this person, this poet, is neglecting the apple tree. And they're saying that neglect is the scent of apple boughs smoking in the wood stove. Here, the word boughs refers to the branch of a tree. So branch, or it can be a twig of a tree. And it is currently smoking in the wood stove. So we might be like, okay, if this poet had this amazing tree, why would it be smoking in this stove? What's actually happening is the poet had this tree in the past, and then because it died, they cut it down and is using it for wood to fuel the fireplace. And the smell of the apple branches is reminding him and making him feel a great sense of guilt and loss about the fact that he neglected his apple tree. And we know that he had to cut this down and kill it because it actually says here that he or she brought down this tree. Okay, so here next we say that they were ashamed that the poet could not convince its limbs, which is just its branches, to render fruit. Okay, and render here just means make. So the poet was unable to make the tree produce any fruit. And they're saying now that too much neglect will do that. Skew, which means to make it bend in the wrong way. So make it bend in the wrong way. So skew the sap's passage, which stops the sap from being able to keep the tree alive. Blacken the leaves, which means that they're dead and don't have any nutrients. Dry the bark and heart. So this tree is dying because the person was not able to look after it. Okay, now the poet goes on to say what they should have done, right? I should have lopped the dead limbs early. So lopped means to chop it off. So chop something off, especially referring to a branch or a twig. So they should have lopped the dead limbs early so that any diseases would not spread to the other parts of the tree. And watch each branch with a goshawk's eye. A goshawk is a special type of hawk. So you might be wondering, like, why is the poet referring to a hawk in this part of the poem? And you might have heard in the past where people use the description watching like an eagle or like a hawk. It's because hawks and eagles have very good vision. So if you were watching something like a hawk or watching something like an eagle, that means you're watching it very closely and paying attention to everything that's happening. Okay, so they're saying that they should have cut off the dead limbs, they should have washed each branch, they should have offered water, compost, and mulch, but they were too enchanted by the pear saplings, by flowers, and the pasture. So they were too distracted by everything else, and too callow, which means young and inexperienced. So we'll say young, inexperienced. We can say they were naive. They were too callow to believe that death is inevitable. So inevitable means that it is bound to happen. Okay, for any living being unloved, untended. So what they're saying is they spent too much time looking at the pears, looking at the flowers, looking at the pasture, because they were too young and inexperienced to understand that anything which was unloved and untended would inevitably die. Now what's happening in the rest is what remains is this armload of applewood now feeding the stove's smolder. Now, what's happening is that the person has now cut down the tree into a bunch of wood, and they're using it to fuel their fireplace. So, splendor, which means beauty or magnificence, ripens a final time in the firebox. So what it's saying is that even though this tree is dead, it gets to be beautiful one more time as a lovely fire in the firebox, a scarlet harvest headed by dawn to embers. And what it's saying is harvest is typically a word you use when you bring in lots of fruit from all of your crops and all of your trees. But this time, it's a little bit ironic because the apple tree is actually dead. The scarlet harvest is just referring to the red flames, but even the red flames are headed to embers. So when the flames finish burning, all you have left is a pile of embers, which is left over. 2 decades of shade and blossom, tarts and cider, bees dazzled by the pollen, spare elegance in ice, but what goes is gone. Now, in this part of the poem, the poet starts to reminisce, which means to think back to all of the times in the past where the blossoms from the apple tree were able to give him apple tarts and cider, where the bees would buzz around on the tree. And what they're saying is, even though it used to have these amazing things, what goes is gone, and there's nothing he can do to bring it back. Now, it kind of flashes back to the present here, saying, smoke is all through this lesson in winter, regret I've been given to remember. This sentence might not make sense to you, but I want you to think about the impression you get. He's burning all of his, or she, the poet is burning all of their apple tree wood in the stove, and all that's left is the smoke from the tree. And what the poet is saying is that from the smoke, this reminds him of the lesson that he learnt, and the regret that he feels that he needs to look after his tree for it to be alive. So smoke and red delicious apples, redder than a passing cardinal's crest or cinders. So here a cardinal again is a type of bird, and you can infer from the passage that it's a red type of bird. So we'll put here, this is a red bird. Okay, or cinders. Cinders is like a burnt piece of wood. So cinders is a burnt piece of wood. Okay, so again, what's happening in this poem, you can clearly see that the poet is thinking back to the story of their red delicious apple tree, and how over the winter, because the poet neglected it, didn't give it any water, didn't give it compost and mulch, because they were too busy looking at the pear saplings and the flowers, because they didn't think that it would die if he didn't look at it. That's what this line is saying here. I think this is quite an important line to understand. The poet is explaining how back in the day, or near the time that the tree died, they were too young and too inexperienced to understand that if they didn't take care of the tree, then it would die. Okay, so this is what this poem is talking about. Now we're going to have a look at all of the questions that are based on this poem. So first one. Question 1. Which of the following is not a reason why the persona appreciated the apple tree? A. The tree's produce, which means that the fruit that it produces, could be used to make other foods. We know that this one is true because the poet mentions, let's see where it is. The poem mentions tarts and cider, which are both types of food. B. The tree provided shade and cover. Again, we know this is true because it says 2 decades of shade. So we're going to give this one a tick. C. The tree was used as fuel for fire. We know that that is true. Right now it is being used as fuel for a fire, but that's not the purpose of the tree, and that's not why the persona appreciated it when it was still alive. So we know that C is probably the answer here, but we're going to have a look at D. The tree provided fruits. This one's definitely true. So we're going to circle C, and C is our answer for this question. Okay, let's go on to our next question, number 2. What type of tree is the persona talking about in the poem? So we know right away that the tree is a red delicious apple tree. They mention it in the first stanza. And a stanza is just a paragraph, but in a poem. Okay, so the type of tree is a red delicious apple tree. Number 3, why does the persona feel that they neglected the tree in the poem? So A, they burnt the tree in a wood stove. Now this one's not entirely true because they only burnt the tree in the wood stove after the tree had already died. That wasn't part of how they neglected the tree. B, they offered it too much water, medicine, compost, and mulch. Again, we know that's not true because they said that they didn't give any water, or they should have given more water. C, they accidentally set fire to the tree to warm it up in winter. There's nothing in the poem that suggests that, so we're going to eliminate this answer. And D, they didn't tend to it through the winter, which made the tree die. So we know this one is true, and D is going to be our answer for number 3. Number 4. Why did the persona neglect the tree according to the poem? A. They were distracted in caring for themselves in the winter. Now, there's nothing in the poem that says they spent all their time looking after themselves. B. They thought the tree would survive the winter. We think that this is kind of true, but we're going to check the other answers first. C. They needed firewood in the winter, so they cut it down. Again, we're going to eliminate this one. It's not true. They didn't cut it down because they needed wood. They cut it down because it had already died. And D. They were ashamed of the tree, so they didn't tend to it. While the second half of this statement is true, that they didn't tend to it properly, they were ashamed of they were not ashamed of the tree, so that's not the reason why they neglected it. So that's why our answer for this one is going to be B. They thought the tree would survive the winter. And this goes back to our statement before that we've highlighted here. They were too inexperienced or too young to believe that death was inevitable for anything that was not looked after, which means that at the time they thought that even if they didn't look after it properly, it would still survive. Okay, number 5. What of the following would not help the persona revive the tree? A. Carefully burning off the dead branches. Okay, there's nothing really in the passage that says that it will help to burn off the dead branches. So let's have a look at B. Cutting off the dead branches. So it is true from the passage, because remember they said that they should have lopped off all of the dead branches and watched them closely. C. Watering, composting, and mulching soil around the tree. We know this one's true. And D. Observing the tree's recovering. So observing here just means watching. And watching the tree's recovery, remember they said with a goshawk's, with a goshawk's eye. They're saying that they should have watched it and it would have helped it survive. So we know that that is something which would help the person revive the tree. So that's why for number 5, A is our answer. Number 6, which of the following is true according to the poem? A. The person feels regret over not tending to the tree. We know this is definitely true and it actually targets the main message of the poem. But let's check B, C, and D. B. The persona could not bring themselves to burn the tree in the stove. That's not true because we know there was already smoke from the tree, so the tree is already in the stove. C. The tree did not survive long enough to bear fruit. That is not true because there were 2 decades where the tree had fruit and the persona could make tarts and cider. And D, the persona depended on the tree to survive through the winter. So we don't really know that this is true from the poem, so we're going to eliminate this answer. And for number 6, A is going to be the correct answer for this question. Okay, so let's continue on with questions 7 to 12. So for questions 7 to 12, this is a closed passage type of passage. And what you want to do is that they've given you some gaps and you want to pick which of the sentences over here. So I've actually copied them for you here so that we don't have to scroll back and forth. But which of the sentences over here fits best in the gaps? Now, let's think about when we're reading a passage, each paragraph tends to have the same main idea, and each of the sentences lead on to each other, correct? So when you're looking at a passage and there's gaps in the passage, in order to determine what will go in the gaps, you should look at, okay, what goes before and what goes after this certain gap so that you can kind of guess what goes into the space. So let's have a look at this passage below. The title is Closed Passage. How would you react if we discovered alien life? And it starts off with a blank. So blank, what would happen if we ever came into contact with extraterrestrial life forms? So right off the bat, we know that number 7 is probably going to be an introductory statement because it's starting off the passage that we're going to read about alien life. So let's have a look at all of the possible options and see which one probably can fit into number 7. So A, they are originating from the star system Vega. We have no idea what the star system Vega is, and that doesn't really introduce us to anything. B, Milner will spend $100 million to fund the project. Same thing, we don't really know what it's talking about. If you read all the way down to G, this statement reads, for more than a century, we have pondered a question. And let's say that G goes into the space here, right? Let's read them together. For more than a century, we have pondered a question. What would happen if we ever came into contact with extraterrestrial life forms? G says we have been pondering a question, and then after that, they give us the question. So we know that G is going to be the correct answer for this question. And also in statement G, there's no new information being introduced. So one thing I want you to take away from this specific question is that when you're introducing a topic, no new information should be provided. Okay, we'll add without explanation. Okay, what this means is that all of the statements have some information that, or like mentions of people that we don't really know what they're talking about. All of them except G, and that's why we can confirm that G is the best one to fit here. Let's go on to the next one. So, Carl Sagan's book Contact and Jodie Foster's movie of the same name explore one possible scenario. In it, Foster plays a search for extraterrestrial intelligence SETI scientist. She discovers a signal. It keeps repeating a sequence of prime numbers. Blank. It is the fifth brightest star visible from Earth. The possibilities of such an encounter are worth pondering. Now, we know that this blank is going to be talking about a certain signal. And how do we know that? Because in the couple of sentences before, it's also talking about the signal. So she discovers a signal, and this signal is repeating a sequence of prime numbers. So we know that in 8, it's going to be something about a signal. So this can be, okay, where did the signal come from? Maybe who is this signal from? What is this signal saying? We're considering all of these possibilities. How can we narrow it down? We're going to look at the sentence after. The sentence after says, it is the fifth brightest star visible from Earth. And the key word here is star, because it's talking about a star sending us signals. Now, because we've been able to look at the context of the sentence, which is the sentence before and the sentence after, we can now have a look at the options and see which one matches this most closely. So we're looking for something that talks about either a signal or something about a star. So right away when you read A, they are originating from the star system Vega. And that really does fit into this sentence here, because it explains where the signal is coming from and also explains and introduces the star that is the it in the next sentence. So that's why A is going to fit into question number 8. Let's continue on. And yet, experts believe that the odds of receiving a radio transmission composed of prime numbers or encountering intelligent extraterrestrial life in the near future are astronomical. But the odds may be increasing. Blank. And it is also due to money. So we're going to stop here. Let's think about what should go into this blank by considering the key words and ideas in the context, which is the sentence before and the sentence after. Okay, so it's talking about the odds of receiving a message is increasing. And it also says it is increasing due to money. I want you to look at this word here also. If I say to you, I have a cat, Jenna also has a cat, the also in the sentence comes after a similar statement. Okay, like if I said I ate a burger, and James also ate a burger. Those two are related. So we're thinking that the gap in 9 here is probably going to be talking about a reason why the odds are increasing other than money. So let's have a look at our options. A, we've used already. B, Milner will spend 100 million to fund the project. This can be true. However, it does introduce some new information. Who is Milner? We don't know who Milner is, so we're actually going to eliminate this option. C, Hawking has warned against sending messages out into space. Again, who is Hawking? We don't know who Hawking is, so we're going to cross this out. D, it will go into the Alpha Centauri star system. While this one doesn't really introduce fully new information, it doesn't fit into the gap at all, so we're going to skip this one. E, this is due to continuing advances in technology. And we're thinking, okay, this is probably the one, because it explains why the odds of receiving a radio transmission is increasing, because we have continued advances in technology, and it is also due to money. So for number 9, we're going to put in E. Let's continue. Russian billionaire and Breakthrough Prize co-founder Yuri Milner, along with famed scientist Stephen Hawking, have announced breakthrough Starshot. It is a 20-year voyage. Blank. Should the existence of planets in the Alpha Centauri system be confirmed, Starshot could provide us with the best measurements of an exoplanet atmosphere we could ever hope to get this century. Now, again, let's look at the context of the blank, which is the sentence before and the sentence after. Okay, let me just rub out this one here. Okay, so in the sentence before, they talk about a voyage, so it's going to be something going on a trip. In the sentence after, they talk about some Alpha Centauri system. So we know that the voyage, which means a journey or a trip, is probably going to be going into the Alpha Centauri system. Let's look at our options, and you can see right away that D is the perfect sentence to go into this gap. So D says it will go into the Alpha Centauri star system. It explains the voyage part, and it also explains the Alpha Centauri part. So it's the perfect sentence. Okay, continuing. 11 is blank. Mark Zuckerberg is on the project's board of directors. He is Facebook's founder and CEO. In this sentence, we only have one sentence for context, and that's the one after. The most important word here is just projects. Because it's saying the projects, the first sentence of this paragraph is probably going to be explaining like what is this project, or like what's the project coming from. So let's look at our options and see which one talks about a project, and you're going to see that B fits in this one. Milner, who we've already been introduced to, will spend 100 million to fund the project. And then Mark Zuckerberg is on the project's board of director. He is Facebook's founder and CEO. So it's really good here that it mentioned the word project, because we can match it up with our keyword here to get our correct answer. Okay, so finishing off with the last one, the goal of NASA's Kepler mission was to find terrestrial planets in the habitable zone of stars near and far. Liquid water and possibly life might exist there. Blank. In a press release issued by NASA, Chief Scientist Ellen Stofan said, "This gives us hope that somewhere out there, around a star much like ours, we can eventually discover another Earth." Okay, so now in the sentence before our blank, what are some important words? A standout word is NASA's Kepler mission, because if we can find the word Kepler and the sentence kind of makes sense, it's very likely that the blank, the answer is going to go in the blank. Okay, so next, in the sentences after, they're talking about discovering another Earth, which we can take to mean like other planets as well. So if we can find a sentence that talks about Kepler and talks about planets, we know it's probably going to fit in number 12. And there is one, actually. So F is going to go into number 12. It says, to date, Kepler has confirmed the existence of 2,337 exoplanets. So again, it mentions Kepler, it mentions planets, so we know it's the perfect one to go into number 12. So let's move on to question number 13. In question 13, they provide you with this quote, "I am not young enough to know everything." And when you think about this quote, you're like, okay, this doesn't really make sense because you should know more things when you're older. So we know that there's a certain message that this quote is sending about possibly young people thinking they know everything, but not really knowing it because it takes time and experience for you to know more knowledge and more information. So let's look at the options. A, young people are not aware of their own ignorance. This one we can kind of agree with, but let's check the others. Children these days aren't as confident. So this statement says, "I am not young enough to know everything." If we were trying to say that children aren't as confident, we would maybe say, "I'm not old enough to know everything," and that would support this one. But in this case, we're going to cancel out B. C, children are usually rude towards parents. We're going to cross this one out because it's totally unrelated to the statement. And D, elders within the community don't understand the younger members of the community. While this might be true, it's not really supported by the quote because the quote doesn't talk about different age groups. The quote just talks about young people and how they think that they know everything. So we're going to cross this one out, and A is our answer for question 13. Next one, question 14. If I do not believe as you believe, it proves that you do not believe as I believe, and that's all it proves. Which of the following statements would the writer of the above quote most likely agree with? So A, people have different opinions. Okay, that's true. But often there is only one correct opinion. There's nothing that says that there's only one correct opinion. In fact, the statement says that all it proves is that they don't agree. So we're going to cross this one out. B, people need to tolerate each other's beliefs and be sympathetic. Again, this one we think that it's probably true, but we want to check the other ones. C, it is always good to believe in similar beliefs as other people, but we know the quote is talking about people with different beliefs, so we're going to cross this one out. And D, people can change their beliefs over time. Again, the statement doesn't mention anything about time, so we're going to pick B as our answer for question number 14. Alright, so let's go on to question number 15. In 15, the question reads, a certain type of mushroom grows in height at a rate of 1.6 centimeters per day. A scientist observes this plant for 2 weeks. At the end of 2 weeks, one of the mushrooms measures 25.9 centimeters tall. What was the height of the mushroom 2 weeks ago when the scientists first started measuring it? So, the scientists first started measuring 2 weeks ago. And we know that 2 weeks is equal to 14 days. We're told that the mushroom grows at a rate of 1.6 centimeters per day. So if it grows at 1.6 centimeters per day, and we have 14 days, then that means in total, the mushroom plant grew 22.4 centimeters over the 2 weeks. So if the plant ends up as 25.9 centimeters, and it grew 22.4, we want to know how tall was it originally, so we're going to minus to get 3.5 centimeters. So C is going to be our answer. Now, if you're not really sure why we had to minus, I want you to think about it like this. Let's say that this is the plant originally, the red part, and the blue part is how much the plant grew. We know that the final height is 25.9. So let's write that down here, 25.9. And we knew all of this growth was 22.4 centimeters. So how can we find this tiny little bit here? We need to take the 25.9 minus all of the growing that it did to find its original height. So that's why we do minus for this question, and you're going to get C, 3.5 centimeters. Question 16. Kai is buying shoes at his local sports shop. Kai wants to buy a pair of shoes that cost $1,500. The owner offers to sell the shoes to Kai at a 20% discount. Kai then uses his voucher for an additional 10% off the previously discounted price. So I'm going to highlight this, and I want you to think about this very carefully. If Kai uses both discounts, what is the final price that he pays for the shoes? So what's happening is we have this original pair of shoes. Actually, I'll put it down here. I have this original pair of shoes, which is $1,500. The shop owner is going to give me a 20% discount, which is 20% off. And I'm going to get this new price over here. And then what happens is Kai gets an additional 10% off using his voucher to get the final price. So what we're going to do for this one is first we're going to do 20% off to find the price, and then we're going to do 10% off to find the price. So I want to make sure you guys don't just add together these two and say, okay, it's 30% off in total. Because it says specifically here that it's 10% off the previously discounted price. So it's 10% off this one, okay? Not just 20 plus 10 equals 30% off the total. So now we want to work with our calculations. We want to find what is 20% of 1,500. Now, when we're working with percentage, what does 100% represent? 100% represents the total amount. Okay, so here we can say that 1,500 is equal to 100%. Our aim is to find 20%. How do we go from 100% to 20%? We divide by 5, right? So that means we're also going to take the 1,500 and divide it by 5, and that's going to give you 300. Now that we've found our 20%, we know that it's going to be 20% off 1,500, so it's going to be 1,500 minus 300, which is going to equal to $1,200. We're going to repeat this method one more time. So now we want 10% off this price here. So we can say now that 1,200 is equal to the 100%. How can we find 10% this time? Yeah, so we're going to divide by 10, which means we also divide this one by 10. So 10% is $120. We know it's 10% off, so it's going to be 1,200 minus 120, which is equal to $1,080. So that's why B is going to be your answer for question 16. Next one, number 17. The pie graph below shows the favorite teas of employees in an office. If a total of 42 people chose either green or jasmine tea as their favorite, okay, so that's this part here. How many people preferred Earl Grey as their favorite tea? So first of all, we know that 42 people is going to be equal to 30% of the total amount. Okay, because we know 42 people chose green or jasmine tea, and these add up to 30%. Now, we want to know how many people preferred Earl Grey. So we want to find 45%. Again, I'm going to get you to do the same thing that we did before. If we know that 30% is 42, can you find for me what is 15%? It's going to be half, right? So 15% is going to be 21. And now can you find for me what is 45%? It's going to be 21 times 3. Okay, so actually I'm going to show the steps for you here. we're going to divide by 2. And then we're going to times 3. So 21 times 3 is going to give you 63. So that means 45% is equal to 63 people. So 63 people preferred Earl Grey as their favorite tea. Next one, number 18. The diagram below shows the racetrack that Oscar races at. Oscar's best time for one lap around this track is 1 minute. What was Oscar's average speed when completing his best time lap around the racetrack? The first thing I want you to know is this speed, distance, and time triangle. So it shows the relationship between distance, speed, and time. At the top, I'm going to put a D for distance, S for speed, and T for time. And how I read this triangle is distance is equal to speed times time. Okay, speed is equal to distance over time, or you can say distance divided by time. Time is equal to distance over speed, or you can say distance divided by speed. All right, so now if we want to find Oscar's speed, that means first we need to find the distance, and we also need to find the time. So let's write that down for us here. Speed is equal to distance over time. So let's calculate the distance. Oscar goes 1 lap around this track. This is 450. This is 1,200. This is 450. This is 1,200. So in total, he's going to travel 450 plus 1,200 plus 450 plus 1,200 over the time. So what is his time? He takes 1 minute. So that's going to equal to 3,300 over 1. So his speed is 3,300 per minute. We'll specify that it's meters here. So 3,300 meters per minute. But in the question, it actually asks you for kilometers per hour. So now we need to do one more thing. We need to convert 3,300 meters per minute into kilometers per hour. Okay, if we're converting from minutes to hours, we need to times 60. And how I like to think about this is, if I can do one question in 1 minute, how many questions can I do in 1 hour? I can do 60 questions. So that's why I times 60. For my meters to kilometers, it's just going to be divided by 1,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 3,300 divided by 1,000, which is equal to, we're going to move 3 spots. So 1, 2, 3, 3.3 kilometers. And then I'm going to take 3.3 kilometers and times it by 60. So in total, that's going to give me 198 kilometers per hour. And my answer for this one is going to be A. Find the shaded area of the 2D shape below. You can see we have a big square and a small triangle inside the square. And to find the shaded area, what we're going to do is first we're going to find the area of the square. So let's write down shaded area is equal to the area of the square minus the area of the triangle. Okay, so if we took this and then cut out this part, we're going to get the remaining part that I'm putting ticks on right now. Okay, so first, how do we find the area of the square? The area of the square is just going to be our side times our side, which is 12 times 12. And how do we find the area of a triangle? Our formula for triangle is half times the base length times the vertical height, so from here up to here. So we know that our area is going to be half times 6 times 7. So let's calculate. 12 times 12 is 144. Minus half times 6 times 7 is going to be half times 42, which is 21. So when you subtract, you're going to get 123 as your answer for question 19. Number 20. William brings a certain number of marbles to school. His teacher decides to give him the same number of marbles that he currently has. William then decides to give away 2/3 of his marbles. If William has 16 marbles at the end, how many marbles did William bring to school? So again, because there's a number of processes happening here, I'm going to draw us a flowchart as well. So this box represents his original number of marbles. And then the teacher will give him the same number. And now he has a new number of marbles. Then he gives away 2/3. And now, how many marbles does he have left? He has 16 marbles left here. So if he gave away 2/3 of his marbles and he has 16 left, how much of his marbles does he actually have left? He has 1/3 left, right? And 1/3 is equal to 16. So if 1/3 is equal to 16, then how do we get the total amount that was here? We're going to do 16 times 3, which equals to 48. So now we're going to go back one more step. The teacher gave him the same number that he currently has, which means that the teacher actually doubled his amount of marbles. So to find how many he originally had, we're going to take 48 and divide it by 2, and you're going to get 24, which means that the answer is E. He originally had 24 marbles. Okay, next one. Percy and Nick are asked to select a number between 22 and 85 inclusive. And inclusive just means that it includes 22 and it includes 85. Nick's number has factors of 2 and 11. So if this number has factors of 2 and 11, it means that it's going to be a multiple of 2 times 11, which is 22. So it has to be a multiple of 22. And what are our multiples? We can have 22, 44, and 66. Percy's number has factors of 3 and 5, which means it has to be multiples of 15. So what are the multiples of 15 between 22 and 85? We can have 30, 45, 60, 75. What is the difference between the largest possible value of Nick's number and the smallest possible value of Percy's number? So for this one, you're simply going to do 66 minus 30, and that's going to give you 36. So for question 21, your answer is going to be B, 36. John is traveling by train between two cities. He knows that the train ride is 270 minutes long. If John gets off the train at 8:43 p.m., what time does John board the train? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this 270 minutes into hours. So 270 minutes is equal to 4 hours and 30 minutes. And how did I know that? Because each hour has 60 minutes. 6 times 4 is 24, so 240. And then we have 30 more, so it's going to be 4 hours and 30 minutes. Now, John gets off the train at 8:43 p.m. What time does he board the train? So we want to go back 4 hours and 30 minutes. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to go back the 30 minutes first. So if we go back 30 minutes, it's going to be 8:13 p.m. And now we go back the 4 hours. So it's just going to be 4:13 p.m. Okay, so your answer is going to be E. You can see here it's actually quite easy once you split it up into hours and minutes. Okay, because it's hard to work with if it's just a huge number of minutes. So split it up into hours and minutes. Do the minutes first, okay, and then do the hours, because the hours will be quite easy to do. You just have to count backwards from this number. (23) Holly likes collecting things that she finds on the beach. Holly only collects seashells, bottle caps, and pebbles. The ratio of seashells to bottle caps is 2:3. So I'm going to write this down. Seashells to bottle caps is 2:3. She also knows that there are twice as many pebbles as there are bottle caps. So if she has 3 parts of bottle caps and she has twice as many pebbles, then that means she has 6 parts of pebbles. And this is our ratio altogether. And what this ratio means is that we have 2 parts of seashells, 3 parts of bottle caps, and 6 parts of pebbles. Okay, so in total, how many parts do we have? We're going to add them together, and in total, we have 11 parts. So if there are a total of 77 items in her collection, how many pebbles does Holly have? Now, if we know that 11 parts is equal to 77 items, then I want you to tell me how many items is 1 part equal to. 1 part will be equal to 7 items. And how many parts do we have of pebbles? We have 6 parts of pebbles. So what we're going to do is 6 times 7, and that's going to give you D, 42, as your answer for 23. (24) The diagram below shows the results of a survey asking students in a class about their favorite subjects. Students had the following options: preferred only maths, preferred only English, preferred both maths and English equally, or disliked both maths and English. There are a total of 45 students in this class. How many students liked only English? So this kind of diagram is called a Venn diagram. And it's usually used to show how many people only liked one thing, how many people liked 2 things, how many people liked both, and how many people liked none of them. So in this part of the circle, this red part, these are all the people who liked only maths. In the blue part of the circle, these are the people who liked only English. In the middle, these are the people who liked both. And this number 4 on the outside represents the people who didn't like either. We know that the total of these 3, so the math, the both, the English, and the 4, have to add up to 45, because this represents all of the students in the class. So we know that 12 plus 8 plus 4 is equal to 24, which means that there has to be another 21 students in this gap over here. Okay? So when you're doing Venn diagram questions, you need to make sure that every single person is represented in this diagram. Next question, number 25. The line graph below shows the number of books sold by a bookstore over a year. Lily looks at the graph and makes the following statements. The total number of books sold in the first 3 months is 1,300. So let's have a look. In January, she sold 400. Make sure you read this as 400 because it says in hundreds on the side. In February, it's between 4 and 3, so she sold 4 and 2, sorry, so she sold 300. And in March, it's at 600. So we can see that that is true. In total, she sold 1,300. The average number of books sold per month in the last 3 months is 700. Now, how do we calculate average? An average is equal to the total sum, okay, over the number of months. Okay, so let's find our total sum. In October, she sold 400. In November, she sold 600. And in December, she sold 1,100. And we're going to divide by the number of months, which is 3. So what you're going to end up getting is 2,100 divided by 3, which is equal to 700. So again, statement 2 is true. 3. The number of books sold in April, so that's this one here, is twice the number of books sold in June. So that's this one here. So we just want to look. April is 1,000. June is 500. So we know this is true. So that means the answer for 25 is E. All the statements are actually true. Next one, number 26. Claire is cooking pasta and uses bottled pasta sauce stored in a glass bottle. The sealed bottle of pasta sauce weighs 700 grams. Claire decides to use 50% of the sauce in the bottle. If the weight of the remaining sauce in the glass bottle is 450 grams, what is the weight of the glass bottle? What I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw a little diagram for you. This blue part represents the bottle, and this red part represents all the sauce. Okay, so I'm going to shade in the sauce. We have some nice pasta sauce here. Now, Claire uses 50% of the sauce. So what happens now is we still have our bottle, but now we only have half the amount of sauce left. Okay, so this is the amount of sauce left. Now, originally, this was 700 grams. Claire uses 50%, and now we have 450 grams left. So what does this mean is all of this sauce that Claire used is equal to, so used sauce is equal to 700 minus 450, which is going to give you 250 grams. So that means half of the sauce is 250 grams. So the weight of the sauce is 500 grams. So that means the weight of the glass bottle is 700 minus 500, which is equal to 200 grams. So your answer for 26 is going to be C. Okay, 27. In basketball, free throws are worth 1 point, 2-pointers are worth 2 points, and 3-pointers are worth 3 points. The table below outlines Isabel's total shot attempted during her basketball match. What is the maximum number of points she could have scored during her match? And the maximum number of points just means that she scores all of them. So if a free throw is worth 1, in total she's going to get 8 points from this. A 2-pointer is worth 2, so in total she's going to get 26. And a 3-pointer is worth 3, so in total she's going to get 72. So when we add all of these together, it's going to give you D, 106 points. Number 28. Hannah is shopping for watermelons at her local fruit grocer. Watermelons are being sold at $2.55 per kilogram. Hannah knows the grocer well, and the grocer offers Hannah 2 prices for buying the watermelons. 1, rounding the price per kilogram of watermelon to the nearest dollar, and 2, rounding the price per kilogram of watermelon to the nearest 10 cents. Hannah wants to purchase 12 kilograms of watermelons. How much money will Hannah save by choosing the cheaper option instead of the more expensive option? So first, let's figure out what the two options are. Firstly, rounding the price per kilogram to the nearest dollar. So remember, because this is above $2.50, we're going to round up to $3. Rounding the price per kilogram to the nearest 10 cents. Again, because this 5 is 5, so everything that's 5 and above you need to round up, it's going to be $2.60. Now, we know Hannah wants to purchase 12 kilograms of watermelons. What I'm going to do is first, I'm going to find what is the difference for 1 kilogram of watermelons. So I'm going to get $3 minus $2.60. So that means for each kilogram, it's 40 cents. So if I wanted to buy 12 kilograms, I'm going to do 40 cents times by 12. And that's going to give me $4.80. So your answer is going to be D. For this question, some of you might have said, okay, I'm going to take 3 and times it by 12 to find the total amount. And then I'm going to take $2.60 and times it by 12 to find the total amount, and then minus. So what I advise you guys to do is first find the difference and then just multiply by 12. Because we always want to keep our numbers the smallest possible. We don't want to have a 12 times 2.60, okay? So that's why for 28, it'll work better for you to minus first, find the difference per kilogram, and then multiply by the 12 kilograms. Next one, number 29. A magic square is a 3 by 3 table where each column, row, and diagonal add up to the same total. What is the number found at Q? Before we can start, we need to find out what is the total. So we're going to look at this diagonal here. And we're going to do 9 plus 6 plus 3, which is equal to 18. Which means that the total for each of the rows, columns, and diagonals is 18. So let's have a look at this row over here. In this row, we have a 5 and a 3. So to make up 18, we need another 10. So now let's look at this one here. In this column, we have a 6 and a 10. So in order to make up 18, we need another 2. So that's why your answer is going to be A, 2 for question 29. Number 30. Ben is driving to the Gold Coast for his holiday. The distance he needs to drive is 875 kilometers. Ben has planned out a schedule to decide how he will drive for the whole trip. So first drive 120 kilometers per hour for an hour. Take a 15-minute break. Drive at 35 kilometers per hour for an hour. Take a 1 hour and 45-minute break. Drive at 72 kilometers per hour for the rest of the trip. So for this question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up this table over here. And I want to keep track of the time that Ben has used and the distance that Ben has traveled. So first, if we're driving at 120 kilometers per hour for an hour, we've used 1 hour and we've traveled 120 kilometers. Next, he takes a 15-minute break. He now drives at 35 kilometers per hour for an hour. And then he takes a 1 hour and 45-minute break. Okay, so after this, he's going to drive at 72 kilometers per hour for the rest of the trip. So first, we want to know how much time has he already used. We're going to do 1 hour, 2 hours, and then 3 hours. And then the 15 and 45, we can add it together to make 4 hours. So he's already used 4 hours. And how much has he already traveled? He's already traveled 155 kilometers. Which means that to find out how much he has left, we're going to take 875 and minus 155 So he has 720 kilometers left. Okay, if he has 720 kilometers left, he wants to travel at 72 kilometers per hour. Let's bring back our distance, speed, and time triangle. Okay, so S for speed is here, D for distance, and T for time. Let's find out how much time he has left to travel. His distance is 720. To find the time, we're going to divide by speed, which is 72, which means that he has another 10 hours left to travel. So in total, he has this 4 hours plus this 10 hours, which means the answer is D. He has 14 hours of travel in total to get to the Gold Coast. Next one, number 31. Brian rolls 2 dice and adds the number shown on top of each dice. The table below outlines all the possibilities that Brian can obtain. Brian looks at the table and makes the following statements. 1. Rolling a total of 7 is the most probable outcome. So here, when you're doing probability, the most probable outcome is the one that happens the most time. So if you have a look, 7 happens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and everything else is actually less. So that means the first one is correct. 2. The probability of rolling a total of 12 is 1 out of 6. So when we're calculating probability, it's actually a fraction. And what is the fraction made of? The fraction is made of the ones we want over the total number. Okay, so let's see. The probability of rolling a 12, the ones we want is the 12, and how many of them are there? There's only 1. So the ones we want is 1. And how many in total are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in total, there's 36. So that means the probability is actually 1 out of 36 and not 1 out of 6. Next one. The probability of rolling a total of 4 is equal to the probability of rolling a total of 10. So let's see what's the probability of getting a 4. There's this one, 1, 2, 3. So the probability of rolling a 4 is going to be 3 over 36. For 10, how many are there? There's 1, 2, 3, which means the probability of rolling a 10 is also equal to 3 over 36. So that means that this statement is correct. So for your answer, it's going to be D. Statement 1 and statement 3 are both correct. (32) Ray and her group of 5 friends are organizing a birthday party and gift for Ray's best friend. They decide to purchase a radio that costs $330 and split the cost 6 ways equally, so each person pays $55 each. Ray then decides to use her own money to purchase a birthday cake and card for $25 and $6 respectively. The total cost of the birthday gifts is $361. Which of the following best represents how the birthday gifts were funded? So first, we have the radio where there were 6 people and each paid $55. So somewhere in our answer, we should have a 55 times 6. Okay, so let's have a look. I'm going to highlight all our possible answers. So this one we have a 55 times 6. This one we have a 55 times 6. And this one we have a 55 times 6. Okay, so Ray then uses her own money to purchase another cake and card for $25 and $6 respectively. So we're going to add on another $25 and add on another $6. So that's why our answer for this one is going to be C and not A or B, because all of these have a times between the 25 and 6. But actually, we're just adding 25 and then adding another 6. Okay, 33. Kinta only goes to the beach on sunny days. If a sunny day falls on a Sunday, then Kinta will definitely go to the beach and will also take his surfboard with him to surf. If Kinta surfs for over 3 hours on Sunday, he will call in sick on Monday. we want to know which of the quoted, if the quoted passage is true, who is correct. So first, we're going to try to understand the quoted passage. All right, so if Kinta only goes to the beach on a sunny day, if Kinta is at the beach, then it has to be a sunny day. Okay, I want you to be very clear about this. If Kinta is at the beach, it has to be a sunny day because he only goes on sunny days. This doesn't mean that if it's a sunny day, then he will be at the beach, or it doesn't mean that if it's a sunny day, then he will go to the beach. However, if you have a sunny Sunday, then he will definitely go to the beach and bring his surfboard. Okay, next. If he surfed for over 3 hours, on Sunday, then he will call in sick on Monday. Okay, so this here just represents the key relationships from the quoted passage. So now let's have a look. Tyrone says, it was sunny every day of last week, but Kinta only went to the beach once, so he must have gone on a Sunday. Okay, this one is true because just because it was sunny doesn't mean he went to the beach, but if it's a sunny Sunday, then he definitely goes to the beach. So that's why if he only went once, it had to be the Sunday. Number 2. So Kinta called in sick on Monday, so that means that it was a sunny day yesterday and he surfed for over 3 hours. Now, again, we're going to be careful here because just because he calls in sick doesn't mean he surfed for over 3 hours, okay? It only works if he surfed over 3 hours, then he'll call in sick. So that's why Helen is actually wrong in this case. So that's why the answer for 33 is going to be A, Tyrone only, because Helen actually got the arrows the wrong way around. 34. In the final round of an art competition, competitors were asked to make a sculpture using 7 specific blocks and following certain rules. The final sculptures of the competitors are shown in the table below. One of the competitors were eliminated because they did not follow the rules. Who was it? So now we want to know which one is the odd one out, basically. Let's have a look at the different patterns. First, we're going to count the number. Okay, so I'm going to put this here. When we're looking for patterns, first you want to count the number. Second, you want to look at the colors. Third, you want to look for any patterns inside the shape. And then fourth, we're going to look at the positioning. So first, let's count the number. There's 3 white, 3 white, 3 white, and 3 white. 2 black, 2 black, 2 black, 2 black, and 2 striped, 2 striped, 2 striped, and 2 striped. So the number isn't the odd one out here. The color is also not the odd one out. Now let's look at the patterns. We have one that goes this way, that goes this way. One that goes this way, one that goes this way. This time we have 2 that go the same way. And we have one that goes this way and one that goes this way. So this gives us a hint that Dominic is the one who's the odd one out. But let's have a look at the positioning. There's no specific position that we kind of want. Some of them are touching at the corners. Some of them are touching at the edges. So we're just going to say, okay, the positioning doesn't matter. So C is going to be our answer because Dominic's stripes are facing the same way and everyone else's are facing opposite ways. $35. Felix recently bought a house in Newtown. The following is known about Newtown. 1. All houses on George Street have chandeliers in the dining room. 2. Only houses with at least 2-story floors have balconies. 3. There are no houses on Drempton Street with balconies with enough space for a dining table. 4. Felix's house does not have a balcony, but it does have a chandelier. And 5. Chandeliers are only in houses that are 1 story tall. Which of the following statements prove that Felix lived in a house that is 1 story tall? So for this one, we're going to pay attention to this 1 story. And let's look at which of the options talk about a building being one story. Okay, so this one. Chandeliers are only in houses that are 1 story tall. So if Felix's house has a chandelier, then that means that it's 1 story tall. Is there any proof that it has a chandelier? Yes, it does. So Felix's house does not have a balcony, but it has a chandelier. So that's why statement 4 and 5 will help you prove that Felix's house is 1 story tall. Okay, use the following information to answer questions 22 and 23. Boris, Ashwin, Michaela, Jerome. Okay, so use the following information to answer question 22 and 23. Boris, Ashwin, Michaela, Jemima, and Lily are real estate agents. The following table shows how many houses they sold each month, but some information is missing. Okay, and you can see that the information is missing is who the agent is. It is known that whenever Boris sells less houses than the previous month, Michaela sells more than she did in the previous month. Which row represents Michaela? So first, we want to find a situation where Boris sold less than the previous month. And that's going to be this one here. So you can see that the number actually decreased. We went from 23 down to 13. The rest of them are either the same or an increase. So now we want to find in this remaining 4 rows which one of them increased, because Michaela will sell more than she did the previous month. So 13 to 11 is a decrease, 15 to 12 is a decrease, 25 to 27 is an increase, and 18 to 15 is a decrease. So Michaela has to be number 3. Next one, it is known that Jemima sells more houses than the previous month only when Michaela sells less houses than the previous month. Which row represents Jemima? So let's find a situation where where Michaela sells less houses than the previous month. So Michaela starts with 25, goes to 27, goes to 30, and 33. So there's actually no situation where Michaela sells less houses than the previous month, which means there's also no situation where Jemima sells more houses than the previous month, which means Jemima's houses have to be decreasing and decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. So let's see which one. This one is decrease, but then it increases, so it's not 1. This one is decrease, but then it increases, so it's not true. This one we decrease, or stay the same, and then decrease. So we know that D is going to be our answer for 37. Joe and his friend Ben are on opposite sides of a straight line track measuring 6 kilometers. Because Ben is injured, he will walk the track while Joe will run. Ben walks at half the speed that Joe runs. They set out from their end of the track at the same time. They decide that when they meet, Ben will turn around and return to his side of the track. How much does Ben walk? All right. So we have Joe here, and we have Ben here. And we have a 6 kilometer track. Now, Ben walks at half the speed that Joe runs. So that means that Joe is going to run twice as much as Ben, which means that Joe will actually get to 4 kilometers when Ben gets to 2 kilometers. So they decide that once they meet, Ben will turn around and go back, which means in total, Ben is just going to walk 4 kilometers. Teachers should not let students choose their own groups for school projects. This is because it may result in some people feeling left out, particularly those who have low grades, which will make students feel bad. Rather, teachers should make groups themselves and put higher grade students with lower grade students to balance out the skill levels of the team. Which of the following if true, most strengthens Steve's argument. Okay, so we want something that strengthens Steve's argument. So first, groups in which everyone has the same skill level are usually very argumentative. So the passage doesn't really talk about people of the same skill level. So we're going to put a cross on this one for now because it's not very relevant to what we're saying. B, when teachers choose groups, usually only one person in the group will do all the work. This one actually weakens the argument because the argument is saying that teachers should choose groups. Okay, I'll write that down for you. The argument is that teachers should choose groups. Okay, so this one we're going to cross again because it weakens the argument. C, people with low grades can often offer useful creative skills to projects. This one is a little bit irrelevant to our argument, which is why teachers should choose groups. And then D, when students choose their own groups, they often pick their friends and waste a lot of time playing around. So this definitely supports why teachers should choose the groups. So that's why D is going to be our answer for 39. Okay, 40. No matter how patient and calm a person is, anyone who works a nursing shift will be easily irritated and moody after they end a 10-hour-long shift. Dennis says someone who becomes irritable and moody after only 5 hours can be considered an impatient person. Now, there's nothing really that says that, after 5 hours, if they're annoyed, then they're an impatient person. It's just saying that whoever the person is, after 10 hours, they're going to be irritated and moody. So we're going to cross Dennis out. And Nash says, my mother is a very patient person, so even if she works a 10-hour-long shift, she could still be in a good mood at the end of it. But what the statement is saying is, no matter how patient and calm a person is, so no matter who it is, if the person has worked a 10-hour shift, they're going to be irritated and moody. So we're going to cross this one out. So that's why your answer is going to be D. Neither of them are correct. Okay, Mia, a designer, has the following 2 transparent tiles with black lines on them. She rotates and places them on top of each other to make the final design. Which of the following could she not make with an arrangement of the above tiles? So let's have a look. I'm going to say that this one is red. I'm going to try and find them in each of the tiles. So for this one, it's going to be this part here and this line here. For part B, it's exactly the same as the shape. For part C, again, exactly the same as the shape. And for part D, you're going to have something like this here. And this part here. Now let's think about the black lines. So we have this one here, this one, and this one. Make sure that you're thinking carefully about the shapes when you're rotating it, okay? So this one here, this one, and this one. So A is possible. B is exactly the same as the shape. So we have this one here, this one, and this one. Now, C, when we rotate, you're going to get here, here, and here. And D, when you rotate, you actually get here, here, to here. And you can see that doesn't match up with the one that we have. So that's why D is going to be the correct answer for this question, because you can't make D from the tiles. Number 42. There are 16 children entered in a ping pong tournament at Wagner Elementary School. The tournament is a single elimination tournament. This means that if you lose a game, you will be eliminated from the tournament. If you win, you move on to the next round. There are no ties in this tournament. All participants that are still in the tournament participate in each round. How many games must be played to determine the winner? So let me get you to think about a scenario where we have 16 different children. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'll put them here, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And each of them are going to play one other person. So 1 game, 2 game, 3 game, 4 game, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when there's 16 children, they're going to play 8 games. And how many children are we going to have left? We're going to have 1 winner from each game. So now we have 8 children left. And we can follow the pattern. There's going to be 4 games. Okay, after they play the 4 games, there's going to be the 4 winners. So there's 4 children left. And they're going to play 2 games. And then at the very end, there's going to be 2 children left. And they're just going to play 1 game with each other to determine the final winner. So that means that in order to determine the final winner, we have 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1, which is equal to 15 total games. Okay, 43. If there is a blizzard in the Red Mountains, then the day before, Louisville must have experienced below 0 temperatures. When Louisville has a thunderstorm, it will always also experience below 0 temperatures. Okay, we're going to draw out our arrows like before. So we're going to say blizzard in Red Mountain. Then the day before, Louisville must have experienced below 0 temperatures. So we're just going to say Louisville was cold. When Louisville has a thunderstorm, it will also experience below 0 temperatures. So, Louisville had a thunderstorm yesterday, so today the Red Mountains must be experiencing a blizzard. Okay, so basically what's happening in this one is Sam is saying that if Louisville has a thunderstorm, it must have been cold, and if it was cold, then there must have been a blizzard. So all of you can recognize the issue here is that Sam's got the arrow the wrong way around. Just because it's cold doesn't mean there was a blizzard. So let's have a look. In A, the Red Mountains may not always experience a blizzard when Louisville experiences below 0 temperatures. So that's exactly what the problem is here, because Sam has gone the wrong way in the arrows. So that's why for 43, A is going to be the answer. 44. There are 5 employees, Gary, Bill, Isabel, Tina, and Kate, in an office. Rumors spread through the office according to the following rules. Rumors can pass from Gary to Isabel. So Gary to Isabel, but not vice versa. And vice versa just means in the reverse direction, okay? So it's Gary to Isabel only. Rumors pass between Kate and Bill in both directions. So we're going to draw an arrow in 2 directions. Rumors can pass from Tina to Gary, but not vice versa. So we can go from Tina to Gary, but not vice versa. Rumors pass between Tina and Kate in both directions. Okay, so what this means is that these 3 can all tell rumors to each other, but then in order for it to get to Isabel, Tina has to tell Gary, and Gary has to tell Isabel. Okay, so if all the employees know about a rumor, who could not have started the rumor? So remember we said that if Tina knows something, then they can tell Kate and they can tell Bill. So all 3 will know together, okay? Gary could not have started the rumor because Gary can only tell Isabel, right? So Tina can tell Gary, but Gary can only tell Isabel. So if Gary started it, then there's no way that Tina, Kate, or Bill will know. So that's why for this question, A is your answer. Okay, 45. Technology has become so widespread that babies can now navigate an iPad or a smartphone before they are able to read and write. However, it was less than 20 years ago when we were still using a paper map to get to a destination. Technological advances have been extremely beneficial. However, it has also created a society that is reliant on machines. Therefore, as technology takes over more and more aspects of our life, we will become less and less equipped to sort out any problems ourselves. So the argument above is just saying that we can't do anything by ourselves anymore because we rely on technology too much. So rely on technology too much. So we want a statement that supports this. A, in today's society, if a person's phone ran out of battery, they would likely be unable to direct themselves to a destination using a paper map. Okay, we know that this one is true, so we're just going to circle it for now. Let's have a look at B, C, and D. So B, while babies might not understand the word on technological devices, they use the colorful pictures to navigate, so that's not really about technology, so this one's wrong. Factories that were initially entirely run by human manpower are now run nearly solely by machines. So this can mean that we rely too much on technology, but that's not the definite reason. Maybe machines are just better at doing it, or machines are more efficient. There's nothing that shows that humans can't do it anymore. We're just getting the machines to do it. So we're not really going to pick C. D, technology cannot ever replace the abstract thinking of the human mind that is required to solve difficult problems. So this one actually weakens the argument, so we know it's not true. So for 45, A is going to be your answer. Okay, 46. If both Trudy and Dennis are part of the Fressington School debate team, they will definitely win the debate. However, if the debate topic is about politics, Trudy will not be part of the team. So Rachana says, if the debate topic is about the US president, Fressington School will not win the debate. The problem with this one is, again, let's say if Trudy and Dennis are in the team, then they will win. Okay, if the topic is about politics, Trudy would not debate. However, it's not necessary to have Trudy and Dennis to win. If we have them, we will win, but that doesn't mean that if we don't have them, we won't win. Okay, so that's why this one is wrong, because just because Trudy will not be part of it doesn't mean they won't win. Next one, Trudy and Dennis plan to participate in the debate, so Fressington will win the debate. That is true, right? Because if we have Trudy and Dennis, that means we'll definitely win. So that's why for 46, B is going to be your answer. Oscar's reasoning is correct. "47. Aiko is participating in an orienteering game, where she must collect a series of items in a particular order. The orienteering race shows a 9x5 rectangular field split into 1x1 meter squares as shown below. Aiko begins in the corner marked by the arrow. She can only move along the edges and must collect the items in the order C, A, B before returning to the starting point. What is the minimum distance she must travel?" Okay, so let's go from the starting point and go to C. So it doesn't actually matter whether you go this way or this way. If you count it, it's the same number of blocks. So we just want to go to C. And then next, we need to go to A. So let's say I go this way. Again, it doesn't matter which way I go. I can go like this, or I can go like this. As long as I'm not going like this and adding extra blocks to my my route, like this or something. This is the most direct route, so no matter which way I do it, it's going to be the same number. So after A, we're going to B. And then after B, we're going back to the original spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to count up all of these blocks. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So that's why your answer for this one is going to be D, 28. Because it takes her 28 blocks to do the orienteering game. "48. The popularity of cinemas has been declining as the popularity of streaming services such as Netflix has increased. Streaming services not only provide access to the movies released in the past, but are now also being chosen to premiere new films without a cinema release. This provides no incentive for people to go to the cinema. Therefore, if this trend continues, cinemas will be a thing of the past, which strengthens the above argument. So this one's a little bit more tricky here, because the argument is actually about streaming services. Okay? Talking about Netflix and the cinema is only an example. The argument itself is about how streaming services is taking over. So let's have a look. A, movie premieres are more about the fashion and high-profile names. This is totally unrelated, so we're going to eliminate this one. Each film streaming services only give users access to certain chosen movies and TV shows. This one actually weakens the argument because it's saying that the streaming service is bad. C, as music streaming platforms have become more and more popular, there are negligible album sales. This one is right because it talks about streaming services. So we're just going to circle this one for now, and let's have a look at D. Box office sales of movies released in the cinema are higher than ever. This one actually weakens the argument again. So we know that C is the correct answer because it talks about how streaming services are making album sales and cinema visits less popular. Okay, 49. Kalpana works at a donut store and decorates donuts according to the following rules. Donuts which have sprinkles do not have chocolate toppings. Donuts must either have caramel drizzle or icing. Donuts which have cookie crumble toppings must also have caramel drizzle. Okay, so let's have a look. Anything with a triangle cannot have a square. So we're going to cancel out any options which have both triangle and square. So that's these two gone. Next, donuts must have either caramel drizzle or icing. So this one is fulfilled by both of these because this one has dots and this one has the caramel drizzle. Donuts which have cookie crumble topping. So if it has an X, it must also have caramel drizzle, which is a diagonal stripe. So this one has an X, but it doesn't have the caramel drizzle. So that means that A is going to be our answer for 49. And then question 50, Romina is planning on going on a hiking trip. Before she goes hiking, she must purchase the necessary gear from the store. Okay, so she has to buy the gear first, and then she can go hiking. So Oliver says, Romina has already purchased the hiking gear, so she may have gone on the trip already. Okay, this is true, because if she has the gear, then she could have gone on a hike already. So we're going to tick this one. Romina went on a hiking trip yesterday, so she must have purchased the equipment she needed from the store. That's also true, because if she already did the hike, that means she must already have the gear, because she needs the gear to go on the hike. So that means for question 50, the answer is C. Both Oliver and Michaela had the correct reasoning.